Welcome back, everybody, to another deep dive. We got a really interesting one for you today.
Yeah.
A deep dive into the story of Sarah Jo Pender.
Oh, yeah. This is a fascinating one.
So for this one, we're going to be going over an article from Investor titled The Sarah Jo Pender Story, From College Student to America's Most Wanted.
Wow.
It is quite a story, and it's one that really begs the question, was she the mastermind behind a double murder, or was she a victim?
Right.
So let's sort of rewind back to the beginning of this story.
Okay.
And, Sarah Jo Pender starts off as a seemingly ordinary college student.
Mm-hmm.
At Purdue University, she was studying physics and computer technology.
Yeah, not exactly who you think of when you think of like a hardened criminal.
No, not at all. I
Yeah.
mean, like a physics and computer technology student, that's like...
Yeah, that's like they're going to be working at NASA or something.
Right, exactly.
Actor.
Very promising student, very bright.
Mm-hmm.
But in October of 2000, things take a very dark turn.
Her roommates, Andrew Cataldi and Tricia Nordman, are found murdered,
Yeah.
and their bodies are discovered in a dumpster.
Yeah, it's a really horrific discovery, and the case it quickly becomes really complicated
Oh, absolutely.
because Pender's boyfriend at the time, Richard Hull, confesses to the murders.
Okay.
But on the other hand, you have the fact that Pender purchased the murder weapon, which was a 12-gauge shotgun.
Right before the murders, too.
Yeah, that's really suspicious, right?
Yeah.
And she was also involved in disposing of the body. So it's like, what role did she actually play in this whole thing?
Yeah, I mean, was she manipulated by him into doing that, or was
Right.
she covering up her own involvement,
Yeah.
what was going on?
Right.
And the prosecution in her trial, they really jumped on those points, They were saying that she was the mastermind,
So they were saying that she was the one who orchestrated the whole thing.
Yeah, that she manipulated Hull into actually committing the murders.
Wow.
But a lot of that evidence was circumstantial, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, they had the shotgun purchase, they had witness statements about her helping get rid of the bodies, and then there was her demeanor during the trial, which some people saw as like a lack of remorse.
It seemed like they were really making a lot of assumptions about her character.
Yeah, I mean, you never really know what's going on in somebody's head.
Right. You can't just assume their guilt based on how they're acting.
Exactly.
But the jury, they found her guilty of 2 counts of murder.
Wow.
And she was sentenced to 110 years.
Oh my gosh, 110 years.
Yeah.
That's a long time.
So that verdict really kind of sparked a debate,
Right.
about whether she actually got a fair trial,
Yeah.
about if that was an appropriate sentence,
Right.
and was she really the one calling the shots?
Yeah, was she really in control, or was she a victim?
Right.
It's a really good question.
And then things get even more complicated because when she's in prison
Oh boy.
at the Rockville Correctional Facility, she gets a reputation for being clever and manipulative.
Huh. That's interesting. So, like, even within the prison system,
Mm-hmm.
she was kind of known for being able to kind of play the game a little bit.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And then in a really shocking turn of events, on August 4, 2008, she escapes
She escaped.
with the help of a prison guard named Scott Spittler.
No way a prison guard helped her escape.
Yeah.
That's incredible. How did she pull that off?
Well, she had smuggled civilian clothes into the prison, and somehow she convinced Spittler to help her get out using a prison vehicle.
So this was like a very well thought out planned escape.
Oh, yeah. It was meticulously planned.
Wow, that's amazing. I mean, for someone who's supposed to be under someone else's control, that's a pretty high level of planning.
Right. And so, as a result of that, she ended up on America's Most Wanted.
Oh,
She was on the U.S. Marshal 15 Most Wanted list.
wow. So she was like a high-profile fugitive.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
For 136 days, she was out there.
That's a long time.
Yeah. And, a lot of people were shocked by this. Like,
Yeah.
how could this happen?
Right. And it really made people wonder if she really was this manipulative figure that they were saying she was.
Right. Because if she was able to manipulate a prison guard to the point where he helped her escape,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's pretty impressive
Yeah.
and scary.
And then she's eventually recaptured in Chicago on December 22nd, 2008.
Okay.
But there are huge consequences, not just for her, but also for the guard who helped her.
Yeah. What happened to him?
Well, Pender ended up being placed in solitary confinement for almost 5 years.
Wow.
And Spittler, he received an 8-year sentence for aiding in her escape.
Oh, wow. So he lost everything.
Yeah.
His career, his freedom.
Mm-hmm.
It's incredible what could have possibly motivated him to do that.
Right. Was it just like misplaced sympathy?
Right.
Or did he genuinely believe that she was innocent?
Mm-hmm.
Or was there something more there? You know?
Yeah.
Was there a romantic relationship, maybe, or something?
Yeah, there's been a lot of speculation about their relationship, but nothing's ever really been confirmed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's really a mystery.
Mm-hmm.
But her escape really solidified that image of her as a master manipulator.
Right.
It made it really difficult for people to see her as anything other than that.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to imagine someone who could orchestrate such a complex escape as being a victim.
Right.
But,
But we still have that lingering question. Was she the one in control all along, or was she manipulated by Hull?
right, was she a mastermind or a victim?
That's the big question, and we're going to try to get to the bottom of that today.
Sounds good.
I think to really get a sense of, what happened, we got to kind of go back to the night of the murders.
Okay, yeah,
I mean, the details of that night are really important
absolutely.
for figuring out what role, if any, Sarah Jo Pender played in this whole thing.
Yeah, so the official account, based on, court records and Hull's confession,
Mm-hmm.
is that he shot both Andrew Cataldi and Tricia Nordman in their apartment.
Yeah, it was a brutal crime.
Yeah, and it's really, the starting point for this whole tragedy.
Right.
And Pender's stance, from the beginning has always been that she wasn't there during the shootings.
Okay.
She claims that Hull forced her to help dispose of the bodies afterwards.
Oh, so she's saying he threatened her.
Yeah, that he threatened her if she didn't help him cover it up.
But even if that's true, that still doesn't explain why she bought the shotgun.
Right, that's the question that the prosecution kept coming back to.
Mm-hmm.
They argued that she was calculating that she planned this and that she manipulated Hull into actually doing the killing.
So it's like two totally opposite stories.
Yeah.
Like on one hand, you have this scared young woman who's forced into this horrible situation.
Right.
And on the other hand, you have this cold-blooded killer.
Right. And it's possible that the truth lies somewhere in between those two extremes.
Yeah.
And I think the challenge, both for the jury back then and for us now, is trying to sift through those accounts and consider all the evidence and try to figure out what the most likely scenario was.
Yeah, and to make matters even more complicated, Hull later recanted his confession.
Oh, wow. So he's saying he didn't do it.
Yeah, which really, throws a wrench in the whole thing.
It does, yeah. I mean, false confessions do happen,
Mm-hmm.
and there's a lot of things that can lead to a false confession, like coercion or manipulation during interrogation.
Yeah.
Or even sometimes a desire to protect someone else.
Right.
So it's hard to say for sure why Hull recanted, but it definitely raises some doubts about the validity of his initial statement.
Exactly. And I think we also got to consider, the dynamics of their relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Was Pender really the dominant one?
Right.
Was she really the one pulling the strings, or was it more complicated than that?
Right, because abusive relationships,
Mm-hmm.
it's rarely a case of one person having all the power.
Mm-hmm.
It can be much more subtle than that.
Right.
And the power can shift back and forth in these really unhealthy ways.
Right.
So figuring out who really held the power in that relationship is going to be crucial
Yeah.
to understanding what happened.
And then you add in the media frenzy around this case.
Oh, yeah. The media definitely didn't help
Yeah.
to clarify things.
They really latched on to the more sensational aspects of the story,
About the young college student, the double murder, the prison escape.
Yeah.
I mean, that's like a recipe for a media circus.
Right.
And that kind of coverage can really influence public perception
Mm-hmm.
and make it difficult to separate fact from fiction.
It's a good reminder for all of us, to be critical of the information that we're consuming,
Absolutely.
especially when it comes to these high-profile cases.
Right, because the media, they need ratings.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes they'll simplify complex stories
Right.
just to, make them more digestible for the average viewer.
So we have to be really careful
Yeah,
to not let those narratives shape our own understanding of the truth.
exactly.
So as we kind of move forward with this,
Mm-hmm.
we got to keep all this in mind,
Absolutely.
the evidence, the different accounts, the fact that there could be outside influences that are clouding our judgment.
Yeah, we need to be open-minded but also critical
Right.
of the information that we're looking at.
So let's talk about Pender's time in prison
Okay.
and that incredible escape.
Yeah.
Here's a woman who was convicted of double murder,
Mm-hmm.
facing over a century behind bars,
Right.
and she manages to pull off this really meticulously planned escape.
And she had help.
Yeah, with the help of a prison guard.
Scott Spittler.
Scott Spittler risked everything.
Yeah.
His career, his freedom,
That's amazing.
to help her.
Yeah. Why would he do that?
I mean, what could have motivated him?
Right. Was it misplaced sympathy?
Mm.
Did he genuinely believe that she was innocent?
Right.
Or was there something more personal going on?
Mm-hmm.
Was there a romantic relationship per se?
Right, like what was the deal?
Yeah.
And there have been a lot of theories about their relationship, but nothing concrete has ever come out.
Right.
So we don't really know for sure.
But we do know that he was essential to her escape.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he smuggled clothes in, he got her access to a prison vehicle, and he drove her away from the facility.
And it had huge consequences
Yeah.
for both of them.
Huge consequences.
He went to prison for 8 years.
Wow.
And Pender's escape really solidified in the public's mind that image of her as a master manipulator.
Wow. Because if you can manipulate a prison guard into helping you escape,
Mm-hmm.
you must be pretty manipulative.
Yeah.
But it also, kind of exposed this vulnerability in the prison system itself.
Oh, absolutely. Like,
Right.
Pender's escape forced the Rockville Correctional Facility to completely rethink their security protocols.
Yeah, they had to make some serious changes after that.
To prevent something like that from ever happening again.
Right. And it also raises questions about how they handle, staff and inmate relationships.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's a tough balance.
Yeah.
You want to treat the inmates humanely,
Right.
but you also need to maintain boundaries to ensure everyone's safety and security.
And it kind of brings us back to that core question about Sarah Jo Pender, you know. Was she a manipulative mastermind?
Or was she, as her supporters believe, a victim of circumstance?
Mm-hmm.
A young woman trapped in this abusive relationship,
Right.
driven to these desperate measures.
And there's evidence to support both sides.
Exactly. And that's what makes this case so compelling.
Mm-hmm.
It forces us to confront these really complex questions about human behavior,
Mm-hmm.
about, the challenges of determining the truth
Right.
and the potential for our own biases
Yeah.
to influence our judgment.
Let's break down those arguments for her innocence a little bit more.
Okay.
Like, people who believe she was wrongly convicted, they often point to that lack of direct evidence linking her to the actual murder.
Right. Like there's no smoking gun.
Yeah.
Her buying the shotgun is suspicious, for sure,
Mm-hmm.
but it doesn't automatically mean that she planned to use it for murder.
Right.
There could be other explanations.
And even her involvement with, like, getting rid of the bodies, while disturbing,
Yeah.
could be seen as an act of desperation, you know?
Mm-hmm.
If she was really, truly afraid of Hull,
Right.
maybe she felt like she didn't have a choice.
Right. Like somebody in a controlling and abusive relationship might act in ways that seem totally irrational
Mm-hmm.
or out of character.
Especially when they're under that much stress.
Yeah, exactly.
And her supporters also bring up, Hull recanting his confession.
Right.
They argue that his initial statement can't be trusted
Yeah.
and that maybe she was protecting him.
Right.
Or maybe he was coerced into confessing.
Yeah. I mean, that recantation really does throw a wrench in the whole thing.
It does.
It raises those questions about how reliable his testimony was,
Mm-hmm.
and it introduces that possibility that maybe there was some manipulation or
Yeah.
coercion during the interrogation.
And it's worth noting that,
Mhm.
Pender has always maintained her innocence
She's
throughout this whole thing. She was even offered plea deals
Really?
that would have significantly reduced her sentence,
Wow.
but she refused to take them.
Huh. So she would rather stay in prison for longer
Mm-hmm.
than admit to something that she says she didn't do.
Yeah.
That's pretty powerful.
To her supporters, it really shows her strength of character
Yeah.
and her unwavering belief that she is innocent.
They see her as a victim of the system.
Mm.
That was just looking for like a convenient narrative.
Right.
They didn't properly investigate Hull,
Right.
and they overlooked evidence that maybe could have supported her claims.
Right. And then you have the other side of the coin,
Mm-hmm.
the people who believe that she's guilty,
Right.
and they point to, certain behaviors of hers
Yeah.
that they say are evidence of a manipulative and calculating personality.
Like what kind of behaviors?
Like buying the shotgun,
Mm-hmm.
disposing of the bodies,
Right.
her elaborate escape plan.
Right.
They see all of that as part of a pattern of her being willing to do whatever it takes to get what she wants,
Yeah.
even if it means harming other people.
So they don't believe her claims that she was manipulated by Hull.
No, they think she was an active participant in the events that led to her roommates dying.
And to them, the escape from prison really kind of reinforces that idea,
Mm-hmm.
right? It shows that she's capable of manipulating other people,
Right.
of thinking strategically
Yeah.
and acting decisively when she needs to.
So we're left with these two competing interpretations,
Right.
each with its own set of supporting evidence and arguments.
And that's where critical thinking comes in.
Yeah.
We have to think about, How valid is the evidence? Are the witness accounts reliable? And what about our own biases?
Right.
Are those influencing how we see this case?
We can't just accept one narrative at face value.
No.
We have to engage with all the complexities of the case, acknowledge those gray areas, and, be willing to accept that maybe there isn't a clear-cut answer.
Exactly. The truth can be really hard to find.
Yeah.
Especially in cases like this, with conflicting accounts and evidence that's really open to interpretation.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean we give up.
No.
We keep trying to figure out what happened.
I think this whole Sarah Jo Pender story really reminds us that the pursuit of justice isn't always a straight line.
No, it's not.
Our perceptions of guilt and innocence are shaped by so many things.
Well, yeah.
Media portrayals, our own personal biases.
Absolutely.
All those things factor in.
It's a good reminder to really examine our assumptions.
Yeah.
To question the narratives that we're given and to approach these issues with nuance and empathy.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, we'll leave you with this final question.
Right.
Could Sarah Jo Pender have been a victim of circumstance, manipulated by Richard Hall into this horrific situation?
Or was she the one who planned it all?
Yeah. Or was she the architect of this cold-blooded double murder?
Right.
A master manipulator who orchestrated her own escape from justice.
We encourage you to keep digging into this case.
Yeah.
Weigh the evidence. Think about everything we talked about and come to your own conclusions.
Thank you for joining us on this journey into the Sarah Jo Pender case.
It's been a fascinating one.
Yeah, we hope this deep dive gave you a deeper understanding of this case and all the questions that it raises.
Remember, the search for truth is an ongoing process.
It is.
Every piece of information, every perspective we consider helps us understand the world a little bit better.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep.